In a small American town, where everyone was busy chasing their own survival, lived a man named Ethan. He was a single father in his early 30s, raising his little daughter, Lily, the best way he knew how. Life hadn't been kind to him. Bills piled up faster than paychecks, and sleep felt like a luxury. Every morning before the sun came up, Ethan would pack lunches, braid Lily's hair, and whisper, "We'll be okay, sweetheart. As long as we have each other." He worked 2 jobs, one at a gas station, another at a small diner. His shoes were worn out, his hands rough, but his heart was still gentle. He believed in doing good, even when life gave him every reason not to. He always told Lily, "Help others even when you don't have much, that's when it means the most." But one morning as he rushed to his first shift, something caught his eye. Sitting by the roadside, wrapped in a tattered old coat, was an elderly woman. Her hair was gray and tangled, her face weathered by time and hardship. People passed her by like she didn't exist. Some glanced. Others turned away. Ethan slowed down. He looked at his watch. He was already running late. If he stopped, he could lose a day's pay, but if he didn't, he'd go against everything he'd ever taught his daughter. He hesitated, torn between responsibility and compassion. And then he heard Lily's voice echo in his mind, "Dad, you always say we should help people when no one else will." Ethan took a deep breath and walked toward the old woman. But little did he know, that small act of kindness was about to change his entire life. The woman looked up slowly, surprised anyone even noticed her. Her eyes were tired but kind. Ethan crouched down and said, "Ma'am, are you all right? Have you eaten today?" She gave a faint smile and whispered, "No one's asked me that in weeks, son." Ethan felt his heart sink. He opened his lunch bag and took out the sandwich and small cup of tea he'd packed for himself. "Please," he said softly, "have this." She tried to refuse at first, but her trembling hands gave her away. She was hungry, painfully so. She took the sandwich with tears in her eyes. Between small bites, she began to talk. Her name was Mrs. Henderson, once a schoolteacher who loved reading and teaching children. But after her husband died, her health declined, and she lost her home. No family, no friends left. Just forgotten. People had stopped seeing her. To them, she was invisible. Ethan listened quietly, guilt washing over him. "I'm sorry," he said, "you shouldn't have to go through this." Mrs. Henderson smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised how fast people forget you when you have nothing to offer." Ethan didn't know what to say. All he could do was promise, "I'll check on you tomorrow. I mean it." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The image of that lonely woman haunted him. He didn't realize it yet, but that promise would become the most important one he'd ever make. The next day, after finishing his shift, Ethan returned to the same spot. There she was, sitting quietly just as before. He brought her some soup and bread from the diner. Day after day, he kept coming back. They talked about life, books, and dreams that never came true. Slowly, a friendship bloomed between 2 people who had almost nothing except compassion. Soon, Ethan started bringing Lily along. The little girl would sit beside Mrs. Henderson, showing her drawings from school. She began calling her Grandma Henderson. Neighbors noticed. Some whispered, "Why is he wasting time with that old woman?" Others smiled, quietly inspired by his kindness. Ethan didn't care what anyone thought. For him, it was simple. No one deserved to be invisible. But one evening, as rain poured down and thunder rolled across the sky, Ethan found Mrs. Henderson lying weakly on the bench, shivering. "Mrs. Henderson," he cried, rushing to cover her with his jacket. Her skin was cold. Her breathing shallow. Without hesitation, he carried her to the free clinic across town, drenched, exhausted, but desperate to save her. Doctors admitted her immediately. Ethan stayed all night by her bedside, holding her hand as machines beeped softly in the background. At one point, she opened her eyes and whispered, "Why do you care so much, son?" Ethan smiled weakly. Because no one should ever feel forgotten. He had no idea. That was the last real conversation they'd ever share. A few days later, Mrs. Henderson's condition worsened. Despite the doctor's efforts, her frail body was too weak to keep fighting. Ethan sat beside her, whispering prayers under his breath. Lily held a small flower in her hand, saying, "Grandma Henderson, we brought your favorite color." Mrs. Henderson smiled faintly, took Ethan's hand, and whispered her final words, "Thank you for seeing me." Moments later, she was gone, peacefully, as if she'd just fallen asleep. Ethan sat in silence, tears streaming down his face. For the first time in years, he felt the kind of loss that hit deep, the loss of someone who truly mattered. Days later, while preparing a small burial service, a nurse handed him an envelope. "She left this for you," the nurse said softly. Inside was a handwritten letter. It read, "To Ethan and Lily, thank you for reminding me that love still exists in this world. You gave me back my dignity, my hope, and my family. I may have had no blood relatives left, but I had you. Please don't cry for me, you gave me everything I needed." Ethan folded the letter carefully, pressing it to his heart. The burial was small, just Ethan, Lily, and a handful of neighbors who had come to admire the kindness they once mocked. It was the kind of goodbye that breaks your heart, but plants a seed you don't even realize is growing. Because what came next, no one saw coming. A few weeks later, Ethan received an unexpected phone call from a local law office. Confused, he took the bus downtown, thinking maybe it was a mistake. When he arrived, the lawyer greeted him and said, "Mr. Walker, you've been named in a will." Ethan frowned. "That has to be a mistake. I don't know anyone who'd." The lawyer handed him a folder. Inside were documents signed by Eleanor Henderson, Mrs. Henderson. She had left everything she owned, a small countryside cottage and a modest bank account, to Ethan and Lily. There was also a note, written in her delicate handwriting, "For the man who gave without expecting anything in return. You reminded me that goodness still exists. Now it's your turn to rest." Ethan couldn't believe it. His eyes filled with tears. Lily tugged his sleeve and whispered, "Dead?" Grandma Henderson kept her promise. That day, Ethan didn't just inherit a house. He inherited peace. Proof that no act of kindness ever truly goes unnoticed. Months later, Ethan and Lily moved into the cozy cottage Mrs. Henderson left behind. The garden was full of old flowers she'd once planted, still blooming like her memory. Books lined the shelves, her handwriting in the margins, her presence in every corner. It felt like home, not because of the walls or the roof, but because it was built on kindness. Every evening, Ethan sat on the porch, watching Lily water the flowers. Sometimes she'd whisper, "These are for you, Grandma." And when the wind rustled through the trees, Ethan swore he could almost hear Mrs. Henderson's voice, gentle, grateful, at peace. As the sun set, Ethan reflected quietly, sometimes, the people the world forgets are the ones sent to remind us what truly matters. Because in the end, it wasn't money or fame that changed his life. It was a simple act of kindness, the kind that asks for nothing, but gives everything. True kindness costs nothing, but it changes everything. So the next time you see someone the world has forgotten, don't walk away. You might just be walking past your own miracle. Moral of this story: true kindness doesn't ask what it will get in return. It simply gives, and somehow life always finds a way to give back. Because sometimes, the smallest good deed you do today becomes the biggest blessing you never expected. So remember, you never really know what someone's going through. Be kind. Be patient. And never underestimate the power of compassion. Because in the end, it's not the money, the status, or the things we own that define us. It's how we treat people when the world isn't watching. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that goodness still exists. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because here, we tell stories that remind you, kindness always comes full circle. And remember, we're not just telling stories. We're changing lives.